If you're gonna make anything on YouTube, it should be something that's fun and people get a kick out of. And it's great seeing that you've... Oh, yeah, we're getting some... Oh, is that... Oh, okay. No, not going to say anything. So, yeah, I've lost the thread again. I'm like a cat running up a wall against the laser pointer right now. I have no idea what I was just chasing. I just want it to come back so I can hit it some more. Yeah, the video, yeah, it was fun to do. I have to give credit, though, because you'll never accept it. So I'm going to put it on here so you can't deny it. For people that watch me and have never seen Cyril's stuff, he is about as professional a content creator as you're likely to come across, if only from the perspective that his videos are seamless. They're always put together with a tremendous amount of due diligence and care. Mm-hmm. And as a creator as well, he'll always justify his position, if only to better understand the point of the other person. He will concede certain aspects of parts of his videos sometimes, which I respect. I don't have that ability. I usually say, well, I put it together so you can either like it or not. Whereas this gentleman right here he's a man. He's truly a man of the people.
Populist.
Well, you're the most popular person of all time. It's now official. I tweeted it, so it's real. But I think the only reason why I wanted to ask you about the YouTube stuff is because you seem to have struck a really good balance with it. I've never heard you once complain about it. I've never heard you once us have a conversation. But nearly every other, because I have conversations with a lot of other YouTubers, as I'm sure you do. Not past the level of really though. Just so, what's it like for you? What's it like for me? And almost everyone I talk to has some gripe with it. Something that they're just a little bit, this sucks, and this sucks, and that sucks, and this sucks. Whereas I've never heard you come on once and say, do you know what really grinds my gears? And it goes from there, which is fascinating. Because most people are looking to criticize the thing that they supposedly love the most. And I'm not saying that you love YouTube. I'm sure your relationship is purely platonic. I'm just saying that you seem to have struck up a good balance with it. And as social media in general, I think you found the nub of what it's meant to be used for in the first place.
I think it's because I had I've had the website and I've had a career doing, game reviews and stuff like that before doing YouTube. And I started it at a time when there weren't blog sites and there weren't things where, if you wanted something on the internet, you had to build it yourself. And so I feel like I've come from sort of that world, and so I just kind of go with the punches when it comes to all the YouTube stuff. And right now that's only, it's really only part of defunctgames.com, because we still have a lot of written stuff. We have a lot of retro reviews that go up that don't get video reviews, stuff like that. And so it's just a part of it. And I think there are a lot of people who, they may deny it, or they may say that they hate it, but part of the drama of, like, we all know that YouTube makes a lot of mistakes, that they've had a lot of issues when it comes to striking the balance between advertising and then stuff like that, and then their algorithm sucks, and there are a lot of things that we can complain about. But I don't know if people want to hear those complaints, because at a point it sounds like, it's like a rich person saying, "Man, I just have too much money." Nobody, there's not a single person in this world that wants to listen to that. Like, if you hear Elon Musk talking about, just dating too many hot women and having too much money, there's not a person who listens to that and doesn't have the biggest eye roll they've ever had. It's just, and I think that's, I mean, it's smaller, but I think that to an extent that's similar with YouTube stuff. Like I don't think there are people that really want to hear the complaints about that. And the people that complain, I get why they do it. There are a lot of things that annoy me about YouTube, but I think that they're kind of doing it for themselves. Like, they're complaining to make themselves feel better, and I mean, you know, a decade ago or 15 years ago, we didn't have a situation where we could put whatever we wanted, where we could make shows or make, you know, video content and just put it wherever. You know, it wasn't, we didn't have a platform that was getting more views than some cable television shows. You know, it wasn't a viable way to make money for some people. Like, they're just, that avenue wasn't there. And I think you can only complain about you can only complain about it for so much. Like, there's just, I just don't, like, I hate hearing people complain about that stuff. I'll be honest with you. Like, there are a lot of people that do that, or the people that constantly complain about getting copyright strikes and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's not a problem. There are definitely companies that have you know, that have overreached. But just the people that always complain about that stuff, I kind of feel like they're doing it like that. At a point, it stops. Like, I just don't care. Let
me ask you a question. Do you think that you have a greater appreciation of the opportunity that it presents because you've gone through a time of trying to find avenues of expressing yourself, to find avenues of employment even, and this opportunity is kind of bore of nothing. I remember when YouTube was it was just an avenue for people to make videos about themselves, really.
Yeah.
If you go back far enough, I don't remember a lot about its inception because I came late to the YouTube party, but I remember when there was a time when it was all it was unprofessional as all hell for a kickoff, and the craft was really just making silly little things that maybe people might be just extensions of things like Facebook or MySpace. Really, they weren't. It wasn't.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a platform. It
wasn't professional.
No, exactly. It wasn't a way to monetize yourself as a brand. It wasn't a way of validating yourself. Even it was just a way of just putting stuff out there for people to see, and it's become people's validation is tied up in it to a certain extent, even if they're not dependent on it for an income, which is weird because if you're not dependent on it for your income, why would you care that much? You know, as long as you've got a job and as long as you're earning money, then surely that's all that really you need to worry about. But yeah, I've always wanted to know that because it just always seemed to me. I keep waiting, because again, coming back, I keep referencing the fact that we have conversations. Newsflash, people, I have friends. I do. I promise you I do. I can't name anyone else right now, but... Oh, actually, no. Just a side note, I have my house back. Just, again, I'm going to treat you like no one else is listening. I have my house back. The guy went home, so...
Oh.
Yeah. Great.
He took his Red Dead Redemption 2 and Super NES Classic and left.
I still have both of those here.
Oh.
I think it's because he's quite adamant of me playing Red Dead Redemption. Do you know what? Fuck it, we'll just bounce right onto that. By the way, you know how you said you've played maybe 2% of it?
Yes.
I am really not motivated to play any more of it.
No, it's one of those things where everybody says that it has a very slow start.
Oh, you're not fucking wrong there. Jesus.
Yeah.
An hour and a half of being held by the goddamn hand. This is how you get on a horse. This is how you shoot stuff. Now, they've just let me out into the world, and I don't have a fucking clue what to do.
Yeah.
So, no offense, but after an 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour day...
No, I understand.
I'm like, dude, I need to be distracted, not here's more work. Like, we'll see. We'll get around to it. But the Super NES, Yeah, I'm trying my best. I'm doing everything I can to try and fucking. I think it's a generational thing, man. I'm too old for it now.
Too old?
I'm too old for the NE.
I was gonna, like, when you said generational thing, I was gonna say I thought maybe you're too young for it.
I think I'm learning as I'm getting older. If you're not a naturally gifted gamer, even though I was a decent gamer when I was a kid, I'm not a good gamer now. Rubbish gamer now. It sucks so bad. But I love gaming still. It's still probably my favorite thing to do outside of...
Well, which games are you bad at in it?
Well, let's quickly boot it up and let's have a very quick refresher course. So
everybody that came in here expecting more all this conversation about Avengers.
Well, we never promised
classic.
We never promised anything. I say if you came here for Avengers and you got the first half an hour, consider yourself very lucky, because that wasn't where I was originally going to go. You have this man to thank for that. Right, so Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Suck. What else we got?
It's just Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah, so I keep wanting to call it Super Street Fighter for some reason. I don't know why. Because it isn't.
It doesn't have those other characters.
So, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. I suck. Super Punch Out. I suck.
Okay.
But to give you an idea, Super Punch Out, the first character they give you against is an old guy who's won one fight and lost 99.
Yes.
I can't beat him. It's not possible. I think the game is lying.
You know you're trying to memorize how he acts, right? That's the trick.
No, I just keep throwing punches and he keeps moving and then he hits me back and I fall over. My guy, he doesn't fall over, ever. Super Mario World. Suck. Super Mario Kart. 50cc I can win.
Sure.
But 100cc suck.
Let's not even talk about 150cc.
Well, it doesn't have. Not in this game anyway. It doesn't have 150. So thank God for that. It's giving me.
It does. It does. You just have to unlock.
Oh, for the love of God! So yeah, good luck with that one. And then Kirby Superstar 8 games in 1. I've played the first edition of that, which I think is just Kirby World or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Suck. And then finally F-Zero and Donkey Kong Country.
Okay.
There's a bunch of other games on there as well that I just haven't played yet, because I'll probably suck at those as well. But the point is that I'm going to do my best to not only not suck anymore, but to try and complete them so that I can offer a different type of game review than I've done previously, which is typically I'll play a game that I already know a ton about and I'm reasonably good at and I've got some history with and I know some backstory and I can tell some personal stories. These ones are just going to be about me triumphing over adversity. They're going to be tales of my mettle. Woven tapestries of unending bravery and unwavering determination to persevere over these games that are clearly built to make me look stupid and are succeeding at this point in time. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, how bad could you possibly be at Super Mario World?
I clicked on the first mission and I died.
What?
I could boot it up now and literally go, right, first mission, in we go, dead. And you get 5 lives as well. So I suck 5 times as hard. At least in Super Mario Kart, if you lose, you're just out of the race and that's that.
Right.
Star Fox I haven't tried. Kirby forgives you. Kirby I will give that because he's got a health bar. So if you get hit once, it's not the end of the world and you can find health buffs and you can change the powers.
You can do that in Mario.
Donkey Kong, not a massive fan of. I'm not a big fan of the art style on that, but I get that they were trying for something different.
I'm not a big fan of Donkey Kong Country. That series.
I had it on my Game Boy Advance back in the day. I preferred that version to this one.
Okay.
And then, so those are the games. These are all classics. That's why they're on here. So there must be something good about them that I'm just missing right now. So I need to look a little deeper and look at it from a different perspective and find the classic in them. And if I can't, I shall simply write off the Super SNES as a fluke that didn't.
Are you just not having fun with any of these games?
Fun is a strong word right now.
Oh no!
Look, I like having. Look, I have fun when I know I can win. If I know I can't win, I don't have fun. So if a game's
easy.
It doesn't have to be easy.
What you're looking for is an easy game.
No, it doesn't have to be easy. I just know I can win. With some of these games, I'm pretty certain there's no chance of me completing these games. I'm just saying
I don't know.
There's some of these that I would hazard a guess that the developers sat down one day and they said, look, there's a guy, his name's Lorne, 20 odd years time, he's going to want something to play. Let's build something that he's never going to complete. So the idea is that we slowly drain him of his life force as he spends hours upon hours trying to complete games that he cannot win. Don't you smile at me, Yoshi. You're not funny and you're not clever with your stupid little Mario companion. Your little cape.
Are these? Do you think these are like the oldest games that you've played?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Do you not have any experience with like the 8-bit games?
No.
Like the Nintendo Entertainment System or Master System?
No. And the oldest system I had as a kid that I remember is PlayStation, and even that is not the first system I remember playing, but I don't know what the name of the system was, so the fact that some of these games probably predate that system, yeah, you know.
Okay, well, Lauren, let's have a little fun here.
Okay.
Let's just name some systems. What are some systems? Like, how many systems can you name that have come out in the past?
Well, working backwards, so I can get the easy ones out of the way. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, original Xbox, Dreamcast, GameCube, original PlayStation, Nintendo 64. Now it's when I start to struggle. So Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis, Nintendo Super NES miniature.
Okay.
I'm assuming they did an original version of that, so I'm going to count that as a second one.
Do you know what that's called?
What, the original version?
Yes.
The NES.
Do you know what that stands for?
You didn't ask that. That wasn't your first question. I reserve the right to plead the fifth.
That's fair, but I also said it like a minute ago. So
it's like me saying, what's the 23rd letter in the alphabet? Okay, what's the 14th? Like, wait on a second, that wasn't the first question. You don't get to ask me a follow-up question just to make me look foolish.
But no, it's the... Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what... I don't actually know what the what SNES or NES stands for.
You don't know what that stands for?
I'm not aware. I don't even know what PS in PlayStation stands for.
What?
I'm joking. I don't know. No idea.
Oh, okay.
I was being my typical self-deprecating self.
Okay.
No idea.
You missed the Saturn, the Sega Saturn. That was between the Mega Drive, as you say, and the Dreamcast. You didn't mention anything by Atari?
I've never played an Atari ever.
Can you name any of their systems?
No. I know that I know them more from the games that they're famous for, really, more than the system. Don't ask me to.
What do you mean what do you mean
Wait a
by
minute.
the games?
Hang on a second. I realise where this is going already. You have 2 shows now? 3 or 4? No, a whole quiz series devoted to me not knowing anything about games. How do we get onto that? How do we go back to me not knowing anything about gaming? It's my favourite pastime and I know nothing about it. I can't help it.
But what do you mean by, what are the Atari games that you know?
Wasn't the original Pac-Man on an Atari?
I mean, yes, there was a port to it, but that's not an Atari game.
Okay. Tetris?
No.
Space Invaders?
No.
Google, don't fail me now. I've never heard of any of these games anyway.
Oh, no.
Nope, never heard of any of these games. Gallagher I've heard of.
Which one?
Gallagher.
Oh, Gallagher. Okay.
But yeah.
I thought you kept saying Gallagher, like the stand-up prop comedian who destroys watermelons with a mallet.
Nah. Breakout I've played, but obviously not the original version. Everybody and their mums has made a copycat of that game over years,
sure.
So that doesn't really count.
Yeah, not really.
It says Pac-Man was an Atari game, though.
They probably published it on their thing, but that's not who made it. Who originally made it?
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, that's a system that's escaped me, and probably a lot of my gaming knowledge comes from the more recent stuff because it's the stuff I've played the most, and
sure.
I tend to invest a lot of time into individual games. I don't play a tremendous amount of titles. It's the same with movies. I don't watch a lot of movies unless I'm motivated to watch them, and there has to be something about them that I'm either personally invested in or curious about to want to play or to want to watch them. So even if someone tells me something's going to be a great game,
you prefer watching the same movie over and over as opposed to watching some newer stuff or watching
not
stuff you haven't seen
necessarily,
before.
but I appreciate things more on multiple viewings, and I think sometimes people are too quick to write off a product on first impression, and that's silly because I mean, look, games are prime examples. I don't think they were ever designed to be played the once. The idea is that they're always fun to play, or at least they're fun to play on multiple occasions. So one of the things that playing through the SNES has taught me is that all you have are the mechanics. There's very little end game to a lot of these games. There's no multiple modes. There's no clever cameos or guest appearances from celebrities. It's the game. It's either you want to keep playing the game over and over again or you don't. So the fact that they've designed it from the ground up, so how can we make this game not addictive? Addictive is probably a strong word, but how do we make this game so fun enough to play that people are going to be thinking about wanting to play it to the point where they sit down and they then dump hours into the game? Whereas it's flipped a little bit for me now in that a lot of games that I've played recently, Red Dead's a classic example where they've given you so much to do, but without really thinking about whether or not it's fun or not. And the first hour and a half I've played the game...
I don't think that's fair to say after just a couple. I get where you're coming from, because I am still in that early thing too. But boy, I mean, from every review I've seen,
sure,
like it is still an incredibly fun game. It is not
right. It might be
like it's also a really long game too. So I think they know, like they expect you just sort of like the first game too, where they have a deliberate pace where they sort of they're like, you're just going to go along for the journey, and if you don't, you don't.
Okay, but that's not my point. My point is that these games that I'm playing now, that even though they frustrate me to no end, they frustrate me because there's zero barrier to entry, but once you've entered the game, you're playing by its rules. You either do well or you don't, and it's not going to hold your hand, it's not going to make you feel like you're playing better than you actually are, and it's not going to ask you to sit through anything unnecessary to set up something better down the line. Whereas the games that I've played recently, even the ones that I liked in the end, I still had to kind of endure parts of it. And that's weird because it's going back to something like this. We'll say going back to something, this is the first time I'm experiencing it, but going to something like this, which is going back in time in gaming terms, where they have the opening logo to let you know who made the game, the opening title to let you know what game you're playing, and then sometimes you might have a difficulty setting, sometimes you might have...
They often do.
Sometimes you...
Like there are a lot of extra, or not extras, but a lot of ways to change that Street Fighter 2 game.
Possibly.
You can speed it up and slow it down, and you can do all kinds of things.
Yeah, but I'm speaking generally. You have to forgive me. I'm not talking specifics. I'm trying to cast the net as wide as I can to encompass all these games versus a lot of the games that I've been playing. And like I say, the big difference is these games, within 30 seconds, you're at the core of the game. You're not doing anything in 5 hours' time that you couldn't do at the beginning. Really, there's a couple of exceptions, but really...
There are definitely exceptions, but yeah, I agree.
Come on, work with me here. We're talking generalization.
I agree with you.
But the point is, with Red Dead, for instance, and I'm taking that as example, I'm picking on Red Dead a little bit here. I don't feel within the first... And I've sunk an hour and a half, maybe more like 2, maybe more like 2.5, I can't remember. I don't really feel like I've had any fun yet.
Okay.
Which is a long time to ask of me to say, don't worry, there's fun down the line. Well,
sure.
Yeah, but I play a game to have fun now. No offense, but the philosophy's a little different, which is fine, because that might suit someone, for instance, because I am an individual. The next individual might be looking for a different experience than me, which is, look, I want as much value out of this game as possible. Make it last 100 hours. Make it last forever if you can.
That is the opposite of what I want.
Exactly. I
want that game to be 4 hours.
Dude, back in the day, because different exposure to YouTube, different exposure to different content creators, I remember seeing a lot of reviewers of games back in the day talk about games being 7, 8, 9 hours long and saying, it's too short, we need more, we need it to be more like 20 or 30 hours because then that's value for money. Well, value for money to you maybe, but then there's the bloke who just wants to sit down and knock out a game in a week, a couple of hours a night, and feel like they got an experience out of it.
But it depends on whether or not there's enough story. Specifically with and that's when they talk about a game that's 7 or 8 hours. It's the campaign that they're usually talking about.
Yes.
And whether or not there's enough story, there are a lot of games that the later Resident Evil games were real guilty of this. 5 and then especially 6, where they had maybe 8 hours of story that they could reasonably, come up with, but then the games ended up being 20 hours long. So it was just a ton of filler, or in the case of Resident Evil 6, you end up doing the exact same boss fights multiple times from different views, and it's just... There's just a lot of stuff that they toss in, and they didn't need any. If it could have been, it still wouldn't have been a great game, but it could have been a very tight 8-hour game with the story they had, and that would have been better. Okay. But I think that's when I complain about Link. That's usually what I mean. If it's there are a lot of those Rockstar games that go on for, or forget about Persona 5, for example, took God, it was like 70 hours to beat. And I loved every second of that because I just, the story, there was enough story there to keep me motivated for that length. And it didn't feel like a whole lot of filler. Because the moment you it starts feeling like you're just doing a lot of filler, that's when the illusion is broken.
Well, I'm gonna frame this a certain way because I'm gonna prove I'm psychic now. Okay? You're gonna be amazed in about a minute's time. It's gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna use this to bring not the podcast to a close right now, but I'm gonna edge us towards the spotty-faced usher waving us out of the cinema before Marvel have had a chance to actually show us the next film in a nutshell with a end of credits clip that we all knew was coming but are pretending not to know about. As a reviewer, someone that's played countless games by this point, someone who's got a pretty good sense of what's good, what's bad about a game, what some of the worst things you've seen, what some of the best things you've seen, some of the best games, some of the worst games.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you a question you cannot answer.
Oh.
What's the perfect game?
Tetris.
Okay, and that brings this edition of the Halcyon show to a close.
Of course I can answer that, because specifically the original Tetris, because everything they have done to try to improve on Tetris has only made Tetris worse.
But is that the perfect game for you? Like, if you were to design a game, that's your perfect game?
No, I'm not saying that it's perfect because, it checks off all. It's not perfect if what you're looking for is a story.
But that's what I'm saying.
But it's perfect in the sense of there isn't a flaw with the design of it.
Okay.
Like there's unless you don't like puzzle games, there's nothing bad about the way that it's designed. Like there's no glaring flaw to it. And I mean we can, and this is independent from it whether or not it's perfect or not, but it also is maybe the most influential game of all time.
Which is a fair point. The reason I ask it is because I've had a lot of time to ponder that question, because I often have to justify gaming to a lot of people that aren't gamers. So, for instance, when I'm trying to talk people into giving my channel a watch, and they'll say, well, what do you talk about? I say, well, I talk kind of about everything. But the videos they come across more often than not are about games, because it's my favourite thing to talk about. And for copyright purposes, it's also the safest thing to talk about. But it's also justifying gaming as a genre sometimes. It's, I see games on the TV being advertised, and, my kids play them, or my brother, someone in that demographic plays them. Okay, well, fine.
Sure.
Why would I bother watching a video on it? Well, I go, well, games more than almost any other medium, be it art, sculpture, music, movies, any other medium you can think of, has a way of interacting with its audience in a way that they never can, which is that you both have the ability to be told a story, but also directly influence that story.
Sure.
And even in games where there isn't an inbuilt story, that you can manufacture one. So, for instance,
of course. It's a sample.
You can even take Tetris as an example. I don't know this for a fact because it's been years since I played a Tetris game. Years and years and years. Do you have... I'm presuming it does. It has a scoring system, I imagine. So that you have a high score that it retains and that... Right. Even that can be a story. How I attained that high score, there was a moment in the game when it looked a little bit dicey, but I managed to pull it off, and there was this other level, it was ridiculously easy, and that really helped me along my way. That becomes a story. It becomes something that you share with people that no other person potentially has experienced. They might experience something similar, and they can relate to it, but there's not really as much interpretation as there is sharing of an experience, which is something different to something like movies and music and things like that, because you're really just interpreting you're interpreting the item in question, and then you're sharing that experience with everybody, which is where the conversation comes in.
Yeah.
It's weird to me, though, that gaming can be such a real hotbed of controversy and back and forth and argument. Well, when you break it down to that, and you might disagree with that assessment, but really gaming should be about telling stories about what you did in the game and how you confronted and defeated certain things, rather than, well, I think it should be about this, I think it should be about this. And the reason I asked you about the perfect game is because usually that's a question that either people refuse to answer, say, well, there's no such thing as a perfect game, or it causes a lot of strife, back and forth tension, which is, well, I think the perfect game is Tetris. Well, I think the perfect game is Grand Theft Auto 5. Discuss. And it's like, well, no, you're both kind of wrong.
There are imperfections in Grand Theft Auto 5, as much as I
Highest grossing entertainment product of all time. Yeah, but it's got some flaws. Tetris,
well, that's yeah, like the highest grossing movie of all time is Avatar, and that's flawed too.
I would agree with that assessment as well, but it's funny to me that gaming, at least if you break it down to its core component, has the ability to unite people like that, and yet it seems weirdly divisive these days.
Well, Grand Theft Auto 5, of course, is such a more ambitious thing that almost by design it could never really be perfect. It's just biting off so much stuff that just inevitably something's going to go by the wayside, or you're going to be like, the controls in this section are a little sluggish or something like that. Like, there's really, like, the reason I always go to Tetris is because it's such a small and simple concept, and it's the concept is airtight, and it's as proven by the fact that it inspired so many different types of puzzle games, and I would argue none of them even came close to just sort of the simplicity and the ease of execution that you saw with Tetris.
Okay.
And it's also, that in and of itself is a pretty great story, because that creator, who made almost no money off of it, because remember, it was made at a time when it was still Soviet Russia, so it was still a communist state. So the state, at least for a long time, owned that in the early days. But but he spent the rest of his career, and is still spending his career, trying to get to the same heights of Tetris. He is, I mean, it's very much the Orson Welles of the video game industry, where, his biggest hit or his most influential game was the very first thing he did. And then the rest of his career is spent chasing that. And that's maybe not always a great position to be in. And I know that impacted Orson Welles quite a bit, to the point where he hated Hollywood by the end of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Tetris guy, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because I always get it wrong, and I mean, people already hate the way I say magazine and dragon, so let's not try to do Russian. I think that that has to impact him, or has to weigh. So I don't know, but it is the perfect game. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best game, but just from a design perspective, I just don't think there are any flaws with it. And any time, like, as demonstrated by the fact that every time they've tried to improve on it or make changes to it, it's just made it worse.
Well, there you go. So, let's just recap very quickly. So, we ruined Captain Marvel for everybody. Well done.
No. We're not even done ruining stuff. We have a whole nother topic that I remembered halfway through that we need to talk about.
Well, I need to wrap this up, because
we're going to go real quick with this.
Unlike you, I have an almost reckless disregard for my financial well-being, to the point where I've got to work on Saturdays, where everyone else gets to enjoy their weekends like normal people. So I will throw the floor across to you before we wrap this up. What did
All
you
right.
want
Well, we need to talk because this just came out recently. That you've seen Forrest Gump?
Oh, we're talking. Okay, yeah, yes, I have. I've seen the film. Yes.
Have you? Did you hear about? Because the news broke this week that the original, or because they, the first movie was a big hit. It won the best picture at the Oscars, famously over Pulp Fiction, which certainly deserved it over Forrest Gump. But Forrest Gump, they thought about doing a sequel, but apparently they decided against it after 9/11. And did you hear about the story outline that they talked about when it came to Forrest Gump 2?
I saw a few of the bullet points. Yes.
So apparently, Forrest Gump 2, Forrest Gump was going to be in the back of the Bronco that O.J. Simpson drove. And then in another part, he was going to, because, Jenny has already died, he was going to be in a relationship with a woman in Oklahoma City who worked at a building that got blown up in a terrorist attack.
You need to get to the real good bit, though. Go on, finish.
Wait, no, okay. What's the juicy bit? What's the juicy bit?
Oh, come on now. Those are bad. The worst one I saw, the outline. Let me try and phrase it. What was Jenny's legacy to her child?
Are you talking about the AIDS thing?
Mm-hmm. That I wasn't a particularly big fan of when I heard that as a plot line. Yeah, let's explore that particular treasure trove of emotional turmoil. More to the point. Look, there are some films that carry they're iconic from the get-go for whatever reason. It could be such a small thing, and with him, it's because of the park bench thing. That's going to be parodied and emulated and referenced for forever.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Referenced forever. So how would you carry that into another film? You'd fail trying.
Yes.
And then to say, well, we need to carry on the fact that he's woven inexorably into history. But which
I'm not even sure was necessarily the thing that people liked the most about that original film.
No, not at all. It's just those are punchlines to jokes, really. They were like skits. Like, oh, well, what can we have him turn up in now? And he'd turn up and he'd do his little thing, and it'd be, that's cute. I know he met him and whatever.
Like, how do they get him in the back of that Bronco? And how, there's just so much, they're just trying so hard to hit the beats from the 80s and 90s that it just makes no sense. And it feels like, look, I wasn't a huge fan of the original Forrest Gump, but this would have killed it. Nobody would want to go back and watch the original one after this.
Well,
also, go ahead.
Well, no, actually, no. Also, you finish that thought because I've got something to carry on from it. But also,
do you even think that would have, let's say 9/11 never happened?
Okay.
There's got to be. There's no way that thing gets filmed, right?
I think that's not then. No, now I think they'd tweak it and they'd take a run at it.
Maybe.
I think the reason that someone's released this information is not necessarily all to do with it, but I think someone out there's gone, well, let's see what the temperature of the water's like with the idea of a Forrest Gump sequel if we were to do with these things. And I think
it's ice cold.
Hey, and I'm with you, and I'd like to think that a lot of people would also have that opinion, which is, you want to do what? No, we're fine with just the one, thank you. But you never know. Dude,
there's
they're
a lot
doing
of heavy
Bill
stuff.
Ted 3, and the guy who plays Bill doesn't look like the guy who plays Bill anymore.
Well, I mean, sure, of course.
But they're gonna go for it because there's enough.
I mean, they're not
that just
pretending
think,
like they're the same age, though. Like,
no,
that's actually, I think,
the point is that it's on paper, it's an awful idea. It's a terrible idea. But enough people, me included, went, fuck it, I'll watch a third one.
I'm not sure it's a bad idea, because if anything, I think they could, like, when so much time has passed, like, where it's literally been, like, 30 years, where I think that it's one of those things where you're like, how do you take those not only are what are those characters up to now, but how do you take the themes from those first two movies and apply them to people that are now adults, that are now middle-aged? And I think I'm not saying it's going to be a great film, I don't know, but there's certainly a lot of potential there.
I disagree because it cheapens the ending of the last film. The whole point of those two films is that they did it, and now they're saying, well, actually, no, they never actually fulfilled their potential, and they became losers.
It'll depend on how they do that, I suppose. I don't want to write off anything. I just think the idea of picking up with characters, especially when it comes, like, there are not a lot of films like Bill and Ted, like those two Bill and Ted films, especially now. Like, if it was, you know, there were a lot of franchises where, like they wanted to bring back Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, they've tried that a few times, yeah.
Right, and I'm like, I mean, I understand why you want to do that, but there are already a lot of movies like that. Like, there are a lot, or you know, other, like 48 Hours and some of the Lethal Weapon and stuff like that. There are a lot of, you know, buddy cop films out there already. There aren't a lot of movies like Bill and Ted. Like, I mean, recently like the only one I could think of is like Hot Tub Time Machine, which was not great, and the sequel was just god awful. So I don't know. I think there's a lot they could do with that potential, and it could be fun. And I like Alex Winter. Is it Winters or Winter? I don't remember. Anyway, and Keanu, boy, he's on a roll. Like, this was a great week for Keanu, between the announcement of Bill and Ted 3 filming and John Wick 3.
Again, I don't look. Again, I'm the one sticking his hand up saying I'll watch the film. I'm just saying that in a long line of films now that are doing everything they can to tarnish their own legacy, I don't know if it's a great idat. I'm just saying
I don't think that has necessarily a great legacy, though.
Oh, how dare you! How dare you!
I mean, those were not. You know, the critics were not in love with those films. They are flawed films.
People, do not listen to him. Bill and Ted was Oscar-worthy, and he knows it.
The only thing I wonder about is Rufus.
Yeah. Well, again,
because obviously it's not going to be George Carlin.
Doesn't that add credence to my point then? If you have to undermine your franchise for a kickoff by saying, well, you know how we left you in the last film? Well, we didn't really mean that. There's actually some other stuff that happened, but don't worry, you'll get to see that. Well, what about Carlin? He was such a big part of the previous two films. In fact, some people would say he's the heart and soul of them.
Big part of it. He was definitely one of the best parts of it. I agree with that. But he's not like it's not like he was Bill or Ted. But like, I could see if one of those two had died,
hang on,
them not doing it.
But
I mean, they did the Blues Brothers 2000.
He and the phone booth are more iconic than they are.
Maybe.
Their catchphrase is more iconic than he is, but he, as a figure and as if you were to put him on a t-shirt, you'd get what he was straight away. If you put those two on a t-shirt, I think
I get that, but I think you can write around him not being there a lot easier than Bill and Ted not being there.
Yes, of course you can, because he's not the titular characters. But I'm just saying,
right. And all you really need is sort of like, I don't know, this generation's edgy comic. and it doesn't have to, like, you know,
Oh God.
I don't know, like, you know, it could be Bill Burr or Ali Wong, or I mean, it could be it could be a whole bunch of people. So like, watch it be Seinfeld. I would have said Louis C.K., but he's probably not going to be there.
Oh, suddenly so tired. God, my childhood. What have you done to my childhood? Look, I'm just saying, I'm quietly cautious. I'll go to fucking watch it because I love Bill and Ted. It's one of my favorite films, especially a Saturday afternoon film, the kind that you just come across on TV and you go, fuck it, I'm going to sit and watch this because it's on. Same with Back to the Future. Back to the Future, excellent Saturday afternoon.
Back to the Future is way better than Bill and Ted.
I don't even know what to do with that right now.
Way, like, substantially better, like, by huge margins.
You know how we started this podcast off with not knowing what to talk about? Well, the next one, you better believe you know what we're talking about next time, which is how...
Come on! Back to the Future is a masterpiece. It's one of the 10 best films of the 1980s. I'm not even sure the original Bill and Ted or Bogus Journey. I'm not sure either of them would even make my top 100.
I don't know what to do with that right now. That's unbelievable. Staggering.
Staggering.
Well, listen, I'm putting the kibosh on this right now because otherwise we're going to go back and forth on something that we both know you're going to lose at.
Everybody wants to hear more.
Well, listen,
people, listen to me, audience.
Okay.
I'm on your side. I know you want this to continue for another 2 hours. So don't blame me. This is Lauren's call.
I will not be held responsible for this. For those of you who know, I am a lottery winner and a billionaire, but I work for the love of the game. And as a result of that, this puppy needs to get some beauty sleep because this motherfucker is ugly as sin. But listen, full disclosure, this is the first time you and I have ever recorded a podcast together proper. We did mailbags, but that's not a
You're right.
That wasn't a podcast. That was something different.
And we recorded a podcast that you did not get the audio for.
That is true. I'm not the most professional person in the world, and that's the reason why I have my phone.
Hopefully, you got it all this because this was gold.
And I keep everything together these days, so I know I've got what I need. But I leave the choice to the people. If you want to see this again, hit me up, let me know. We will get this man back, assuming that he's fully prepared next time to justify his frankly heinous decision to put Back to the Future, a film that wasn't even good enough to tell its story in 2 parts.
Whoa!
To come back.
The Back to the Future sequels are not as good as the first movie.
Well, he'll have to justify that in another. But if he comes back, he's going to have to justify that. Plus, I will try and be more up to date on my gaming. I'll give Red Dead another chance. Hopefully, I'll start to see what all the fuss is about.
I am of the mind that just sort of like, I view a lot of video games in the same way I view television shows, which is you kind of can't base it off of the first hour or two. Like, especially a story-based game. It's kind of like you have to get into the story and kind of see it through. Did you played the original Red Dead?
Yes, of course. Sorry. Yeah, I played it. Yeah, I played
the original Red Dead Redemption. The original Red Dead,
I played
Red Dead Revolver. And like, I mean, I think that's one of those that if people had like only played the first couple hours of, they wouldn't have seen the big deal. Like, why is everybody raving about this? Like, you just left for dead, and then, you know, you spend a bunch of time walking around, and then it's holding your hand. Like, I do get your point, though, about it is a very long tutorial. And it's not in maybe the most interesting place because it's all in the middle of the snow, which I think is beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I'm not saying it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't.
No, I think that, especially if what you want to do is kind of jump in there and just explore. And this is why I'm going to recommend that maybe what you should do is try out the online mode real quick, and because that drops you in, and you can explore to your heart's content, and it has its own little story involved with it that's pretty fun. But you don't, it's not holding your hand and stuff like that. You can kind of just go and do whatever you want, and that might scratch that itch while you're waiting for that to open up a little bit more. Or because I did find, there are a lot of shootouts and sort of the stuff like that I found to be pretty interesting. But I agree that the early bits of Red Dead 2 are a bit of a slog. I'm
not saying I'm not going to get... Look, I think you're taking the ball and running with it a little bit here. All I'm saying, I was using it as an example of the comparison between games 20 years ago and what they had to do to get your attention and hold it versus what games expect you to do now, which is you've invested the money, we've got you hooked on the hype, you believe that there's something good coming down the way, so we can get away with taking liberties up to that point. I genuinely believe the game has not been efficient in training me how to play it to enjoy it so far.
Okay.
That might be my failing as a gamer. I don't know. All I'm saying with that one is that it's hard right now at 11 o'clock at night to be desperate to play that game. And that might change with a bit more investment. It happened with Mass Effect. It happened with a few other games that I've gone on to really enjoy. But it's
that's sort of the opposite for me, where I really loved like the first hour or two of Mass Effect, and then everything after that I hated.
Well, that's why we make good bedfellows when it comes to conversation, my friend, because it seems we put it to you this way. We open an assortment bag of crisps. I'm going to have the ones you don't like, and you're going to have the ones I don't like. So that means we don't have to share, which means we're both happy, which means we both walk away with a belly full of crisps, or chips, as they would say in America.
It's true.
There you go.
We say chips.
So, as I'm bringing this, is there... I say this like you're going to get like 1 million people aware of you now that they weren't before. Anything you would like to plug? Anything you would like to... Your Twittle... Twittle? Yes, tell the people about your Twittle handle. You can tell it's late.
It's just at Defunct Games.
There you go. Why are you not following them already?
You can come over and you can complain that I am not giving Benedict Cumberbatch enough of a chance.
That's a good point. You've buried him, you've buried Bill and Ted, and you're trying to tell me that
Bill and Ted are better than Cumberbatch.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, that'll be my new idea for a top
I am more
list.
interested in seeing Alex Winter again than I am seeing Bill, or than I am seeing Cumberbatch.
Some unfettered hatred for Benedict Cumberbatch we must explore next time.
He's so bad.
Right. Well.
Yeah. Alex Winter, just singular, not plural. He's 53 years old. He is from the UK, though.
Yeah. It's good.
He's been making documentaries recently. He did one on the Dark State. Or on Dark Web, not Dark State.
Nice.
Web.
I don't know much about... obviously, the two films he was in with Bill and Ted.
He's doing one on Frank Zappa. That's pretty cool.
Cool. Who's Frank Zappa?
That's a good place to leave it.
I've been your host, Lauren Risley. This has been an incredibly special edition of the Halcyon Show. I'm pretty sure it's the longest show I've ever done. So
probably.
I think the WrestleMania one came close. I think the WrestleMania one was an hour and a half, but that has 7 hours worth of content.
Maybe you should have me back to talk about my WrestleMania experience, because I've been.
Do you know what? I would actually really, no word of irony, I'd love to hear about that, because I'm probably
dig into
never going to experience it for myself, so I'd love to get it from the perspective of someone that was there and B, really couldn't
Not
care
even
less
a
about
wrestling
being
fan.
there. Yeah, exactly. Just was that, is this a big deal? Oh, well, I wasn't really paying any attention.
Who's that guy?
Who's
it's
that
only
guy?
the most famous wrestler. Oh,
Of all time, yeah. But check out this buffet though.
That's a whole other thing. Boy, with E3 coming up, I'm always reminded of that time, because I was there when Nintendo tried to sell everybody on Wii Fit by feeding us all 2 tables worth of donuts to get us Wii Fat.
Hey, it's a good marketing gimmick. I like it.
Oh,
thinking outside the box there.
We have plenty more we can talk about.
There you go.
And
Appreciate
we'll
you
just
doing it.
dedicate another 2
Have
hours
fun.
to that.
Oh, 100%. Well, I don't really end these well. I just tend to go, so there you go. There was it. I've been your host, Lorne Risley. Follow me on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned. Like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Defunct Games as well. He's uploading constantly, all new stuff. And if you're not already subscribed to him, I would consider it a personal favor to me if you would go and at least watch, preferably subscribe. Ideally, donate a kidney. You never know. You can never have too many kidneys.
Yes.
So yeah, that was the Halcyon show. We don't call them Halcyon podcasts anymore because I took your idea and nicked it. So we don't call them podcasts anymore. But yeah,
What do you call them now?
just the Halcyon shows now. I'm just going to number
Just the
them.
Halcyon show. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to call them all the Halcyon shows and then title them because I nicked that idea from somebody else.
I see.
Don't know who that was.
All right.
Don't know who that was. Gave me the idea to put the name and describe what the video is going to be about. Nope, can't put my finger on it. But yeah, that was the show. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Until then.